Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, I am battling through an illness, but we carry on. College football season is in full swing, and we're going to be breaking down the Friday Week 3 slate, Friday, September 12th, 2025. We've got a 5-game slate on DraftKings, and we're going to break down all 5 games for you here, tell you what you can expect from each game, as well as who needs to be in or out of your DFS lineups here for these games. Now, I have not done my Saturday episode yet. Normally, that's the first thing that comes out. But I have been battling an illness, and I don't really quite know what it is. My voice has been pretty much gone. But I'm pretty confident I can get through these 5 games, and we'll figure out what to do with the main slate when we get to it, right? So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you can be with us when the main slate video does drop. And this is going to basically be my podcast version of the Jordan flu game or the Byron Leftwich getting carried by his teammates on a broken leg game like I'm battling here. So I apologize for how my voice sounds, but let's go ahead and dive into the Friday. All right, so I got to be honest, this is a 5-game slate that very easily could have been a 3-game slate. And honestly, when you're building lineups, you could really make this a 2-game slate if you wanted to. I'm not a big fan of the FBS versus FCS games being included on DraftKings. And look, if you're a fan of an FCS team and like this is the one chance you get to see your team on a DraftKings slate, and that's pretty cool. Like I get it. Like I understand that FCS teams do have fan bases. Like, I'm an alumnus of Charlotte. So every time Charlotte's on a slate, it's pretty cool. I feel like I have a knowledge advantage, right? So I get that if you're a fan of an FCS team, but from somebody who is doing an insane amount of research, for somebody who is making content, it's really annoying to have this team pop up once and research them and then never see them again. Like if you're going to go full on to FCS teams, DraftKings, can we get full FCS slates in the playoffs? Like I think that'd be pretty cool. And then also, I don't think Power 4 teams should be allowed to play FCS teams. I've been on that train for a while. It's just not a competitive game. Like Power 4 teams should be playing bye games against G5 teams. G5 teams should be playing bye games against FCS teams. And I just don't like the general structure. Like it's just a non-contest. It's a foregone conclusion, and it's just not a good product, right? So that brings us to our first game, which echoes everything I just talked about. Indiana State taking on Indiana. This game currently does not have a line on it. Normally, when you get closer to kickoff, like a 24 hours or so, the FCS games with FCS or FBS teams start getting lines. This one did not have a line when I started doing my research. So we're using SP Plus from Bill Connolly at ESPN. SP Plus had this game as 47-6 in favor of Indiana. So Indiana State projected to score 6 points. Probably not looking too good for playing these guys in DFS, but let's make the case for it. So Indiana State so far is 2-0 against other FCS opponents. They're not a bad FCS team in general. Elijah Owens was the starting quarterback for the first 2 games, but he broke his collarbone, and so Keegan Patterson is going to be the starter. He played the second half of the game against Eastern Illinois. He is a little bit of a runner. He ran for 78 yards in that game, but it's going to be tough sledding against this Indiana defense. At the running back position, there's a straight-up misprice on here. Ples Lawrence is the number 1 running back for Indiana State. He is also involved in the passing game as well, and he's the starting running back, and I can't find a reason why DraftKings put him at $3,000. Now, the only argument I would make against him was that the quarterback being a runner in Patterson is probably likely to cut into Lawrence's workload a little bit. So I'm not super high on Lawrence. Like if you're looking to do like a salary saver or like a punt play, he's one of the best ones on the slate, but it's hard to see him having a big game against this Indiana defense with a running quarterback taking some of his volume. The other 2 that do play are the 2 that are priced up, which are Osho and Brown, but I'd rather just play Lawrence down there, priced cheaper. At the wide receiver position, the good news is it is pretty darn condensed for this Indiana State team. Rochelle is the target leader. He's by far the wide receiver 1. Reese and Stevens are the other 2 starting wide receivers. And then the other guy that plays a little bit is Brian Domino. He came in and he had 3 rushing attempts near the end of the Eastern Illinois game. So maybe he gets a little bit of run at running back, or he's a Deebo Samuel type player. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to have watched that game, but just know that he's probably the 4th guy that's going to get and see some usage. And again, tough sledding against this Indiana defense. I think there's better plays elsewhere. Now let's talk about Indiana. So Indiana is a team that they played 2 blowout games already, and their fantasy production from all their players are entirely dependent on whether or not they captured the touchdowns, right? So like you look at Fernando Mendoza. In week 1 against ODU, team scored 27 points. He ran for 1 touchdown, did not throw for 1, 17 DraftKings points. In week 2, he threw for 4 touchdowns against Kennesaw State, another blowout victory, 27 DraftKings points. It's entirely dependent on capturing the touchdowns. Now, if you want to play him And I'm probably going to have me some Fernando Mendoza on this slate. I'm going to be playing him stacked, and I'm going to be hoping that I capture all the touchdowns because that's where the upside lies. They're not going to be playing this game long enough to generate a ton of volume or a ton of yards to score a lot of fantasy points, but the touchdown upside is immense. They're implied to score 47 points. So Mendoza is going to make my player pool. It's not going to be a huge part of it, but he's going to be a part of it because I do have faith that he can have a multiple touchdown game. At the running back position, there's 3 of them that see carries. Hemby, Black, and BB have all seen at least 9 carries in both games so far. Hemby's was by far the most in the game against ODU, which was a little bit closer. That was only a 13-point game. He got 23 carries in that one. In the blowout against Kennesaw, he only had 9. So, like, when the games get to be a total blowout, you're going to see pretty even usage among all 3 backs. Like, Kalon Black had 10 carries in that game against Kennesaw, and then Lee Beebe had 11 carries in that game against Kennesaw. The good news is they're not really going to play anyone outside those 3, but the bad news is that they're all 3 priced up, and you're just playing the roulette in terms of who you think is going to score the touchdowns. I think if you're playing enough lineups like a 20 max or a 150 max, you can make a case for getting to these guys. But if you're playing single entry, I think it would be foolish to try to figure out which one it's going to be, because I think it's literally truly random, because all 3 of them are going to see about 10 carries and you just don't know who's going to score the touchdowns. The wide receiver position, we kind of do know who's going to score the touchdowns. It's Elijah Surratt. He's by far the wide receiver 1 for this team. He's the target leader significantly through 2 games with 18 total targets. Huge game against Kennesaw State, 3 touchdowns, 36.7 DraftKings points. That's the kind of upside that he has. I think he's a great play. We've seen him have big games in blowouts because he is just that wide receiver 1, to the point that if they throw for a lot of passing touchdowns, it's quite likely that he accounts for multiple of them. And so my Mendoza lineups are likely going to be stacked with Elijah Surratt. If you're looking to get a little bit different, Cooper and Williams are the other 2 starting wide receivers, but you're really just looking to capture the touchdowns, and I would rather just pay a little bit more to get Surratt, a guy who I think has much more touchdown equity than the other 2. Game number 2 is the other FBS versus FCS game on the slate, which is Colgate taking on Syracuse. The Fighting Toothpaste of Colgate are currently 0-2. They're not really a great FCS team. Their offense has scored at least 17 points in both games. They're not an incompetent offense, but they're not great. This game should be a blowout, and SP Plus has it that way as 49-10 in favor of Syracuse. For Colgate, they do have a clear starting quarterback. It is Zach Osborne. He's rushed at least 6 times in both games, so he does have a little bit of rushing upside. He's only 4,900. I would probably, I don't know. I was about to say that I'd rather play him aside from Keegan Patterson, but I don't know. They're quite similar price, quite similar archetype of player, and you just be hoping that he runs for a touchdown or throws for multiple, and I don't think that's super likely, but I'm not going to say there's 0 chance it happens. Now, this is one I will not be targeting. This position's been very unpredictable. The running back position for Colgate, they play 3 guys, Casamajor, Maldonado, and Shaban, and it's just really hard to predict who is going to be the best one. Casamajor is the leader with 18 carries through 2 games. Like, that's how little they run the football. It's also how little, like, they're not giving a workhorse workload to any of them. So I'm not playing any of them. At the wide receiver position, there is a guy I'm going to play, and his name is Trayvon Saunders. Through 2 weeks, he scored at least 32 DraftKings points in both games. He has caught at least 10 targets in both games. He has 2/3 of the team's receptions through 2 games. That's insane. Like, he is this team's passing offense. And I think even with an inflated price tag of $5,100 going against the Syracuse defense, which we've seen get torched twice in 2 weeks, I think there's a chance that he could have a decent game. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that you can expect his normal 41-point average, but what I am saying is, because of the volume he's going to see, and because I don't think all that highly of the Syracuse defense, I think he can get there even if he doesn't end up scoring a touchdown. If you remember last week, Danny Scudero from San Jose State was playing Texas and did not score a touchdown, but he just saw such volume that he was okay as a DraftKings play. I think that could be the same kind of logic here with Trayvon Saunders on a much lower level, obviously. After that, Moore and Swanson are the only other 2 wide receivers who have caught more than 1 pass. Swanson is second on the team with 8 total targets, but like, why go there when Saunders is at 25? So Saunders is going to be the guy that I'm going to be playing from this Colgate offense for sure. Now, on the Syracuse side, this team's playing at a fast tempo. They're averaging 86.5 plays per game so far, which is 5th in the nation, which is really good. It also probably helps Colgate a little bit that they're playing with a fast tempo, because Colgate's going to get a little bit more possessions, which generally makes them more appealing than Indiana State. Steve Angeli is the quarterback for Syracuse. You know about him. He's the Notre Dame transfer. He's been inconsistent so far. Against Tennessee, 10 points. Against UConn, 24.5 points, which is not Bad. He's thrown the ball at least 40 times in both games. He has 0 rushing upside, having at least negative 25 rushing yards in both games. But he's a guy that's going to throw, and there's a ton of touchdown equity in this game going up against a Colgate defense that's probably not going to be anywhere near the quality that he's seen so far in 2 games. I don't mind it in the same way I don't mind Mendoza. At the running back position, this is a little bit easier situation to predict. So Yassine Willis is the workhorse back, but with a reservation. So in week 1 against Tennessee, Willis carried the ball 23 times, scored 3 touchdowns, 27 DraftKings points. Nice. I was all on him in the game against UConn. Syracuse fell behind in that game, and Willis only carried the ball 11 times, scored 1 touchdown for 10.8 DraftKings points. And so what happened in that game was you saw a ton of usage from Will Nixon. Will Nixon has become the passing down back. He has 10 targets so far in the season, has caught 8 of them. And that usage in the passing game is what lowers Willis's overall workload. It also makes Nixon playable. Now, in this type of environment, I don't think Syracuse will be playing from behind. I don't think they will be in long down distances. So I think that very much favors Willis, especially considering Willis is a great red zone and short yardage back. So I think the way I'm going to play Syracuse on this slate is play either Angeli and a receiver or play Willis, because I think Willis is a great play in this type of game environment. Now, at the wide receiver position, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is there are 5 legitimate options. The bad news is that there are 5 legitimate options, right? So basically, through 2 games, Gill, Cook, Ross Simmons, Villari, and Russell have all been a significant part of the offense. Like they're not playing any other guys. That's the good news. But all 5 of those guys have played, right? And in order of targets, their target leader through 2 games is Justice Ross Simmons, followed by the tight end Dan Villari, followed by Jonte Cook, followed by Daryl Gill, followed by Tyshawn Russell. So basically, Ross Simmons has been the target leader through 2 games. He had the huge game against UConn, 25.3 fantasy points. Not super efficient with his targets. He only caught 5 of his 10. But he was the receiver 1 in that game. Jonte Cook was the wide receiver 1 in the first game against Tennessee. And then he was banged up, came out to warm-ups late against UConn and didn't really have his full stuff, I guess you could say. He's at 6,500, reasonable price tag if he is 100% healthy. Daryl Gill was supposed to be the wide receiver 1 at the start of the season. Started to look more like that against UConn. I think he would be my preference from a DraftKings perspective in terms of the upside and the ownership, because I think everybody is going to flock to these cheaper Syracuse wide receivers and leave Daryl Gill alone. So I think my preference is going to be towards playing Daryl Gill. All right, that's 2 games down, and I'd really need to cough. So let's take a quick breather, and then we'll be right back with much better. All right. Anyway, before we continue, I do want to mention that there are places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. I tweet out all updates for the show on there, as well as if there's ever anything that kind of changes my opinions of players, I make sure to tweet it out. Any depth chart updates or injury updates or anything like that. I try to tweet it out the best I can when I see it. Also, I'm in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description on the YouTube video as well as the audio feed. If you're looking for a community to be a part of, a bunch of people who talk DFS for a lot of different sports, it's an absolute blast. You can get in there, talk strategy, bounce plays off of each other, and then once the games start, it is just full-blown, blowing up. I'm talking jokes, memes, reactions, overreactions. It's just a blast to sweat it out together with the guys in there, and I cannot recommend it enough if you're looking for a community to be a part of. And then lastly, if you want to know who actually makes all my DFS lineups, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. For every single college football DFS slate, I post my core plays as well as a full write-up why they are my core plays. So if you're looking to get better at DFS, that is one way that you can do that by heading on over to that Patreon. All right, now let's take a look at game number 3, which is Colorado taking on Houston. A little Big 12 action here. You remember when I said how you could almost cross out the first 3 games? Yeah, this one's a pretty good crossout candidate because the total in this game is only 45.5. Houston is 4.5-point favorites, which means the implied score is about 25-21 in favor of the Cougars. Now, on the Colorado side, interestingly enough, Ryan Staub was named the starter on social media, but then Deion Sanders in a press conference was totally non-committal and then said that he hasn't named a starter yet. So I don't know what's going on here, but Ryan Staub came into the season as QB3 behind Caden Salter, behind Julian Lewis, and apparently he's going to start this game. I don't know what's going on here, but what I do think is likely, I do think it's very likely that Salter and Lewis play snaps in this game because it's very clear that this team is having a quarterback competition. So I'm not touching it. I'm just not. Yeah, we know the Colorado offense has some upside, but Houston's going to really muck this game up and slow it down. They played a super slow tempo. And we don't know which quarterback's going to play all the snaps. So I'm out on the situation. At the running back position for Colorado, Dallin Hayden is the RB1, but he hasn't played yet this season. Questionable for this game, but apparently he's closer to returning, is what all the reports say. If he returns, I think he's a great play because he's a great pass catcher. What you've seen right now is they have attempted to recreate Hayden in the aggregate. Shout out to the movie Moneyball. Michael Welch has kind of been like the downhill plotter. Hasn't really turned into a whole lot of DraftKings points so far this season. And then DeKalon Taylor has turned into the pass catcher, and he's caught a receiving touchdown in both games, 13 DraftKings points or more in both games. I think DeKalon Taylor, if Hayden continues to be out, I think Taylor is one of the best running back plays on the slate at $3,400. At the wide receiver position, this has also been a mess for Colorado this season. So Marion Miller is the guy that came into their season expected to be their wide receiver one. He's apparently doubtful to play on Friday. Joseph Williams is another guy that's a transfer from Tulsa that they had really high hopes for, but he was not listed as a starter in the Delaware game. Apparently they were not happy with his performance against Georgia Tech. And so what you saw Sincere Brown have a big game against Delaware. He was listed as the starter, caught 4 for 120 and a touchdown, one of which was a big 71-yarder. Is he going to be the guy going forward? I don't know, because you also got Draylon Miller, who's the guy last year that they used in screens and jet sweeps and design touches, but they haven't really done that a whole lot this year. He's a guy that I'm probably the highest on long-term out of all the Colorado receivers, but man, this is a situation that's just really hard to target, and I would not fault you for just full fading it. If I were to play one, it'd probably be Draylon Miller followed by Sincere Brown. On the Houston side, this is an ugly offense. It just is. Connor Wigman is the quarterback. If you remember that name, he's a Texas A&M transfer who can never stay healthy. In both games so far this season, he has been pretty solid, at least 19 DraftKings points in both of them. He has a little bit of rushing upside. He's carried the ball at least 6 times in both those games. The raw passing volume has not been there. I just don't see a whole lot of upside with him. I would way rather pay up for Mendoza or Angeli or a few quarterbacks we're going to talk about later, even though they cost more, because I'm just not seeing the upside with Wigman in an offense that's not going to see a whole lot of possessions, that's not going to have a whole lot of passing volume. I'm just not feeling it. The running back position, there's a guy that I got to admit I was wrong on, and that is Dean Connors. So I was fading Dean Connors in best ball because it apparently looked like he was not going to be the bell cow running back. Well, through 2 games, he's been the bell cow running back. Even though Stephen F. Austin, he didn't score a whole lot of fantasy points, he was the bell cow. And then against Rice, he looked great, 30.5 DraftKings points. So he's the bell cow running back. We know that Colorado has trouble stopping run plays, specifically downhill run plays. So I think that Connors is actually a really good look for this reason. $5,700 is a reasonable price tag for him. The wide receiver position, this is the one I think you can full fade. The 2 listed starting receivers are Amari Thomas and Mekhi Muse. Haven't really done a whole lot this season. Thomas is the second on the team in targets. Stefan Johnson caught a bomb against Rice. But that's all he's done this season. The wide receiver one's really the tight end, Tanner Koziol. Caught at least 6 passes in both games, target leader on the season, but he's priced up quite high. And I just don't think he possesses a whole lot of upside for a guy who's at $6,400 on DraftKings. There's other wide receivers I would rather play. Next up, let's talk about Kansas State and Arizona. This is a fun game. Kansas State's 1.5 point favorites with a game total of 54.5 points, meaning that the implied score is about 28 to 26.5 in favor of the Wildcats. Sorry, y'all, had to hit the cough button there. Last year, these 2 teams played, and Kansas State won 31-7. Arizona scored on their first possession, and Kansas State really just romped them after that. Avery Johnson, Kansas State's quarterback, had over 100 rushing yards in that game, threw 2 passing touchdowns, which were both the tight ends, interestingly enough. So for Johnson, he's been okay so far this season. 27 DraftKings points against Iowa State when we were on him in that showdown slate. 13 DraftKings points against Army when we were on him. But I'm willing to kind of throw out the Army game because Army only let them have 6 total possessions in that game, which is crazy. He's going to have more than that in this game because Arizona plays a little bit up-tempo. I think this is a really good spot for Avery Johnson. He killed him last year. To me, he's the top overall quarterback play on the slate. At the running back position, it all revolves around the health of Dylan Edwards. Dylan Edwards, he played for them last year. He was the RB2. He's a transfer from Colorado. He's an explosive play waiting to happen. Last year when these 2 teams played, he returned a punt for a touchdown. If he's active, I love him. But if he doesn't play, what you get is this kind of amalgamation of Joe Jackson and Devon Rice, neither of whom have been all that great. in relief of Edwards, and it really creates a lot more rushing upside for Avery Johnson. So if I'm going to be playing a lot of Avery Johnson, you kind of might want Dylan Edwards to not play, if we're being honest. At the wide receiver position, there's a very clear one target, and it is Chase Brown. He's been the target leader throughout the season, 29 total targets through 3 games, which is more than double Jaron Bradley, who is second on the team with 14. And Bradley is also out for this game, which means that the other starting receiver, Jerron Tibbs, is probably worth a look. He is the third target leader on the season. And then the tight end, Garrett Oakley, does have some red zone upside a little bit as well. So I really think that the priority should be Chase Brown, but if you're looking to get a little bit different, Tibbs and Oakley are certainly presentable options. Now, on the Arizona side, Noah Fafita is back. He's in his 3rd year starting for them. Seems like he's been around forever. Last year when they played, he threw for 268 yards, but no touchdowns. But he threw the ball 42 times. So what we've seen with Arizona so far is they have not been tested at all. And they have not thrown the ball a whole lot, right? Because they've been ahead in these games. And so I really think that Fafita could be looking at a breakout performance here in this one because he's going to have a full passing volume, but he's going up against a Kansas State defense that's a lot tougher than the 2 that he's seen. So I think Fafita has a super wide range of outcomes, and if you're playing GPPs, I think he's worth a look. At the running back position, Kedrick Riscano is the starter, but he is questionable for this game. He did not play in week 2 against Weber State, but like it was Weber State. Ismail Mahdi is the RB1 if Riscano does not play. What you saw in that Weber State game, though, was you saw a huge committee where Quincy Craig got some carries, and then Wesley Yarborough got some carries as well. If Riscano's out, with this being like a competitive game, I really think it's going to go big time towards Mahdi. This is going to be something that you're going to want to monitor towards kickoff. If Riscano is active, I very much think it would be a close to 50-50 split between Riscano and Mahdi. At the wide receiver position, this is just a mess. Javin Watley is the target leader on the season, but it's 8 targets. It's not a whole lot. This team's really spread the ball around. He's the only starter to have played and caught a pass in both games, which is crazy. You've got Chris Hudson and Chris Hunter and Luke Wysong, all who were supposed to be the starting trio at the start of the season. And they haven't really done a whole lot. It's been Watley that's had a lot of the production. And then the tight end is Keon Burnett. Hasn't caught a pass so far this season. We don't really know a whole lot about this Arizona receiving corps because it's just a ton of unknowns and the fact that they haven't played anybody, so they've just spread the snaps and spread the targets around. It's just really hard to predict. If you're playing Fafita, you got to play him stacked, but I don't really know who the best one to stack with him would be. Do you go with the guys who are projected to be the stars at the start of the season in Hudson and Wysong and Hunter, or do you go with the guy who's actually had production in Watley? I think it's a tough decision to make. Last game of the night is going to be New Mexico taking on UCLA. This game is a 15.5 point spread in favor of the Bruins. Game total is 52.5, meaning the implied total is about 34-18 in favor of UCLA. Now, on the New Mexico side, at quarterback, Jack Lane is the starter. I'm just not seeing it. He's not had a game over 15 DraftKings points. I would rather play one of the FBS guys over him, if I'm being honest. I'm just not seeing it. Even against Idaho State, not very productive. I'm just out on him. I don't know if I'm going to full fade him, but I'm just not feeling it. The guy I want to play from this offense is Scott Trey Humphrey. He's the running back 1. Did not do a whole lot against Michigan, but 18 carries against Idaho State was great in that game. He has 28 carries total on the season, and the next highest between Bankston and McKinney has 10. So Humphrey's your workhorse. I don't really think you need to try to get cute and play one of the RB2s here. A wide receiver, Dorian Thomas leads this team with 21 targets. He's been great. 29 DraftKings points against Michigan, 11 against Idaho State. He's really solid. I have no problem getting to him. And then Keegan Johnson, Kansas State transfer, had 9 targets against Michigan. So kind of in a more competitive game environment, will he see more targets as opposed to last week against the FCS team where he didn't? I think it's a possibility. I'm probably not playing any receiver outside of those 2 on this team. Now, let's talk about UCLA. So, Nico Iamaleava is the starting quarterback for this team after much controversy coming over at the start of the season. And I think this is the spot to play Nico, y'all. I think this is a great spot. New Mexico's defense is really bad. And we've seen Nico through 2 games. 13 DraftKings points against the good defense in Utah. 24 DraftKings points against the bad defense in UNLV. So what can you do against an even worse defense in New Mexico? I think this is a great matchup. He's got a ton of rushing upside right now as well. Double-digit rushing attempts in both games. He's really using his legs, kind of like he was at the end of the season last year for Tennessee. I think he's one of the best quarterback plays in the slate. I'm going to be playing a lot of Nico here on this one. At the running back position, this is a mess. Javion Thomas was supposed to be the team's RB1, and he does lead the running back room in carries this season. But the problem is that it's 12 carries. Berger and Woods have both seen a little bit of work. Woods has been the most productive from a fantasy perspective. I think if I were to pick one, it would be Thomas, but it's a hard handicap. At the wide receiver position, the passing offense has not really taken off all that yet. They've only scored one receiving touchdown to a receiver or a tight end all season, and it has been to Noah Fox Flores. But he's like the backup tight end, and that's his only catch on the year. So what you've seen is that the top receivers for this team haven't really had a ton of upside from a fantasy perspective because they haven't caught a touchdown. Quasi Gilmer is the best of the group. He's the target leader on the season. Went 8 for 87 against UNLV. Pretty solid. Just didn't score a touchdown. If you're playing Nico, I think that he is the smart stacking partner. I'm also willing to play Mikey Matthews as well as, oh boy, here it comes. Going to try my best here. Titus Mokiao Atamalala. Nailed it. TMA, I'm going to call him, is the other starting receiver, went 3 for 32 against UNLV. I think those are probably the three that you'd want to stick with, and I think you do want to play Nico pretty stacked. So the bottom line here is on this slate, y'all. I think there's a plethora of good quarterback options, and I do think that what you're going to want to look at is at the running back position, you really want to try to find guys who are going to see the bulk of the carries for their team. And at the wide receiver position, I do think there's actually a lot of good options, most of which are quite expensive, though. Finding salary savers on this slate is going to be quite tough. But that's going to do it here for this episode, y'all. Like I said, I think I could get through this one, and my voice is still going somehow, so we made it. If this video helped you out in any way, please hit the like button on YouTube. Please rate and review if you were watching or if you were listening on audio. It helps me out a ton when you guys do that, and I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate it. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can be here with us for not only the rest of our week 3 content, which I don't know when it's going to be, and then also the rest of our college football content through the rest of the season. But that's going to do it here for us here today. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you guys here on the Friday slate. Hopefully we gave you guys some good information that's going to help you guys win some money, and I will see you guys next time.